Okay.
Så du stiller bare spørgsmål, og jeg svarer.
Yeah, and we're live.
Yeah.
So, welcome everyone to my extraordinary guest, Alun Biggart. I'm so grateful you're here.
Thank you so much.
Because a lot of us here in Scandinavia know that Alun is organizing events for thousands of people. How many did you say you had on your events? 55,000 or something?
Yeah, the online events we got 55,000.
Okay, so
the live events, the record is 5.
Yes,
but that was also for a special guy with no arms and no legs called Nick Vujicic.
So you can see Alun here is creating so many events for all of us, and I thought it would be time to get to know this leader behind all the leaders he puts on the stage and hear more about who are you, Alun, and how did you make this happen to introduce so many of us to, you've introduced thousands of us to wisdom teachers from around the world, and you managed somehow to gather the best and really create events that are transformational. So I thought it was time to hear from you and to get to know who you are. And I must say, we've known each other for a couple of years, many years at this point. And you always, every time I have an encounter with you, you really raise the bar for extraordinary, how to be an extraordinary human being. So you always...
Now you're making me nervous.
Yes, you always... No, I'm just telling about my experience.
Yeah.
So my experience of you is that you elevate the bar for what it means to be a human being, in the sense that I experience you as somebody who's extremely generous, extremely unconditional in your way of being with other people. It's like you offer, but you don't demand back or expect back. I mean, I would say that you have really mastered to care for the immaterial ego. So you have, it's very, I haven't seen that in you, but I have seen a wise human being who is all about embodying and spreading the light. So that's why I invited you, because I work with Illuminary Leadership. And I try to enroll or animate people to take Illuminary Leadership, and I aspire to it myself every day, to become more and more of a lighthouse and take care of what hinders me in being a lighthouse. So I thought it's interesting for all of us to meet people who have taken this journey and who have something to teach about it. And I also promised people that you would share some of the wisdom pearls that you have learned along the way. So, but if we just start with you getting the opportunity to enlighten us about who are you and where do you come from?
Well, I was born and brought up west of Glasgow in Scotland, and I've been a loving family with good values, teaching to be kind to other people, and teaching to treat other people the way you'd like to be treated yourself. And that was a good start. I moved to Denmark in 1993 because I wanted to play professional badminton. I was one of the best players in Scotland, and Denmark's the mecca of badminton. I was lucky to have 2 good friends, Paul Erik Høyer Larsen, who won the Olympics in '96, and Peter Rasmussen, who won the World Championships in '97. So I played a little bit with them when I came to Denmark, and I quickly found out that I should get a job. So I still played a lot of badminton and played at a good level, but I started a nutrition company. And that was like that was a journey from leaving Scotland with having £3,000 in my pocket to building a company turning over millions of euro. And that was a crazy journey, but there was a point in that journey where I realized that I enjoyed it because it was like building Lego. I always liked Lego when I was a kid, so you could build a company, it was like building Lego. But I thought I was helping people. But the more I got in, the more the company grew, and the more information that started coming up about artificial colorings and aspartame and things, I realized that I wasn't helping them. Even though you could enhance the performance in a short time. Over long term, having aspartame in your body is not a good thing. So I tried to find alternatives for it. And we tried to make things organic, but the market wasn't interested in it. So I did the only same thing, and I sold it. My wife wasn't happy because we just had our first kid, and how were we going to pay the bills? And my father said, you will never earn the same money again. And if you think in terms of the economy, it's the stupidest thing I'd ever done. We were turning over 25 million kroner. At the time, we were the market leader. If we'd had it today, we'd be turning over at least 500 million kroner. But I'd never see my kids.
Yeah, so that's a big price to pay.
So that's a big price to pay. And I just knew my intuition was telling me, and intuition wasn't something that I understood at that time, but I just knew that I had to do it. And I just started again. And I always enjoyed writing. So I just started writing a blog. And then I used the same formula that I used with my nutrition company. Was I searched for healthy products that could that we could sell in the shop. And one of them was a product called Vibram Five Fingers, which is the shoes with 5 toes. So we started importing them. And for a little country, the first couple of years were difficult. Nobody was interested in it. They thought they looked like a monkey in them. But all of a sudden, people started to understand, if I wear the proper shoes, how it's going to affect my health and my sports performance. And all of a sudden, we were selling 20,000 pairs in our little country. So we were actually the country in the world that per capita was selling the most of these shoes. And then in 2010, something interesting happened. I was sitting with 2 friends, and we're just talking about life. And I said, I'm tired of, I know I'm helping with the blog and things, but it's ending up more a distribution company rather than doing something meaningful. And between the 3 of us, we came up with an idea of, because I had a big mailing list by writing the articles, people were subscribing to the newsletter, was that if I could find some teachers, and there was actually 12 teachers on the list, then I could either make a CD or do it online, and we could sell it and give the money to charity. So one of the teachers was an American professor called Bruce Lipton, who wrote the book Biology of Belief. And in March of 2011, I knew I was going to the organic exhibition, the biggest one in the world in Los Angeles. I knew he lived in California. So it took me 2 months to pluck up the courage and a lot of bravery pills. But eventually I wrote the email, Dear Bruce Lipton, this is what I do. I've got this idea. I'd love to interview. Is it possible to come in and visit you in California? And I got really a nice email back saying from his manager, Bruce would love to do it, but he's in New Zealand in March, so he can't do it. But he's coming to Norway on the 1st of May, and you're welcome to go up to Oslo and interview him there. And I wrote back saying, oh, I'd love to do that, but it's my son's 4th birthday. I'm not going to miss his 4th birthday. I'm so sorry. Is there any other possibilities? And then Sally wrote back saying, well, actually, he's not going to be in Barcelona to the Friday. Would you consider hosting him for an event in Copenhagen? And I thought, it started really beating, because instinctively and intuitively, I knew I had to do it, but it was like way outside my comfort zone.
And that was in
2011.
Wow, because I remember I attended an event in 2013 and it was packed. Yeah.
So that event, we had the shoes and the other things were doing really well. So I decided to do a charity event, and to make a long story short, we ended up selling 700 tickets in 14 days to see Bruce Lipton, and gave 150,000 kroner to charity.
Wow, so beautiful.
And that happened, and then it was just like, okay, take a deep breath, sit down, what's happening here? This is like a sign. And this just was the start of a crazy spiritual and personal development journey over the last 12 years.
Yeah, because then what happened is that you did it again and again.
Yeah. So I went to this organic exhibition, and it's enormous. You know, it's America, it's enormous. Everybody's there from all over the world. And I walked into the first hall, and I've never told this story before, so it's good stuff.
Yeah.
The first company I saw was a company called Sounds True. And I thought, that's surreal, because Sounds True is the company that publishes Bruce's books and his audio CDs.
Mm.
So I walked over to there and I said, hey, is Anthony here today? And that had been a really helpful guy that had helped me purchase all of Bruce's products to sell at the event. And this big bear of a guy gave me a big hug, said, hey, brother, I'm Anthony. Who are you?
Mm.
And then I explained, and he asked about the event. I couldn't get my arms down about, you know, this was a sign, you know, I needed to follow it up. And he said, what are you going to do? And then there was a book and a DVD of Michael Beckwith, who'd been in the secret. And I pointed to Anthony and said, you know, I'd love to have him. He really touched my heart in the film The Secret. And he said, hey, brother, you're in luck. His manager's coming here this afternoon.
Okay. Wow.
And I didn't click, but Agape's in Los Angeles. So I went up to Agape and waited patiently to the end and spoke to Michael. And then Michael came in 12. And then we live in Denmark. And I can say this because I'm not Danish, but Denmark's the best country in the world. It's voted the happiest country in the world, which is not true, because Danes, they moan, and they moan and they moan and they moan. So I thought, you know, what can we do to help Danes be more grateful for the amazing things we have in this country? So I invited Nick Vujicic to Denmark. He's born with no arms and no legs, and he's one of the most inspirational people on the planet. He came, and before he came, I got an email from a Swiss company who had been doing Eckhart Tolle and all the big teachers for many years. And the owner of the company was asking if he could get the contact details to Nick Vujicic, because he knew we were having them in Denmark. And I looked down at the names that he had, and there's one that I spotted, and that was Dan Millman, because his book Peaceful Warrior and the film Peaceful Warrior was one of the best books and films I'd ever read. And the story about Socrates, his teacher in it, had really touched me. So I replied to the email, and I didn't think about it. And I went to get my daughter at the kindergarten. And after I got back, I gave her some food. We sat down and I said, okay, Daddy's going to read for you. What would you like to hear? A Danish children's book. So I went to get the book, and I saw a book from the Dalai Lama in the bookshelf, and I took that up. And as I took that up, another book literally fell off the bookshelf and landed in my hand. And I remember the book, and I opened it and I read the letter that my friend had written, who'd given me the book, and I closed the book. And the book was The Laws of Spirit by Dan Millman. So that was like, oh shit, Louisa, just give me a minute. I need to write an email. So that was how Dan Millman came, and the story goes on and on and on. And, you know, it's just like the guiding hand introducing me to authentic teachers who meant something to me and who I personally wanted to learn from. And the best way to do that was bringing them to Denmark.
Wow, it's so extraordinary. And what I really admire, because I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I've done so many events and communities and so on, but I know what it takes to create an event like that. And I've never created an event with thousands, but just smaller events. I know it takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication. And you also take a big risk, because yeah, I mean, at least when I've invited teachers, they need to be paid beforehand, and their tickets and their assistants and blah, 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 and their hotels and the venue. And so you never know if people are going to come, actually. So you run a big risk. And I've always thought of that when I've been at your events, because thankfully they're full and it's a lot of people. It's hundreds of people. But I've just thought to myself, how on earth do you do that? Because it's a mystery to me. And I really want to acknowledge you for your courage, because the rest of us benefit from that courage.
Okay, so I'm lazy in nature, but not scared to work hard. If we've got an event with a couple of 500-600 people, or even Nick Wurchek when he was here last year with a couple of thousand, or Bruce Lipton, whatever, it's 2 hours a day. It's not any more than that, because you don't need to complicate things. So I've got a simple formula that works. Is how do we let people know that the teacher's coming? How do we give the teacher an amazing experience because we want them to come back? And how do we give the guests an amazing experience as well and help them on the journey? And it doesn't take more than a couple of hours a day to do it. The first event, that was a lot harder because I'd never done anything like it before. So I was speculating the whole time about this or that or the other, and you learn as you go along. And you know, I have an event with James Nestor, who's the author of Breath, and there's 900 people coming in 2 weeks. I could run it tomorrow because I've planned it, that everything's ready, so that the last couple of weeks I can enjoy the process instead of trying to fix all the things that I should have done a month ago. And in terms of taking the risk, yeah, there is a risk. And I just listen to my intuition. And sometimes you're open with the speaker and say, look, I'm not sure what's going to happen. And you agree a minimum fee from them, or you make a bonus depending on how many people come. And there's been events where we've lost money. There was one event with an American, he's actually Indian, but he's a business professor called Shikhar Morale. And he is the person on the planet that I think has been best at taking the ancient wisdom of the East and teaching it to us in the West so that we can understand it. He's really big on Mind Valley. And there was months where I could just see, hey, it's just not working this. So I just invited lots of people, because if the event can hold 600 people, there's no point in being 150 people there. And I was curious, okay, what's going to happen? Why is the universe asking me to do this event and put my heart and soul in it? He's like an uncle to me today. We've been to visit him in the States. My family with his family. He invited us to his daughter's wedding. They were with us in the summer in Copenhagen. We don't know them very well, but it's like we just saw them yesterday, and there's a deep friendship. I didn't realize that at the time, but today it's clear as day. That's the reason why. So some of the events don't work out, but as long as it's coming from the heart, and I'm very selective with the teacher I take, for me, it has to be somebody that I really like to learn from. And there's been one instance where there was somebody that I really liked to learn from, but I didn't. Along the process, before I pressed the go button, I realized that maybe that teacher is not as authentic as I thought they were. So I cancelled it before we went go. So all the teachers, I can say hand on heart, is somebody that I really wanted to learn from.
Yeah, and I think that's also a very big part of your secret for success, at least if we talk about how it's aligned with the what I call the 7 facets of 21st century leadership, because one of them is authenticity, and another one is integrity. And I have a feeling that you could get away with, in the old days, to be inauthentic and say one thing and be another. And you could also get away with not walking your talk and just seem like you were the real deal. But I don't think that will work in the future, because we have all of us have developed a very big BS detector from being lied to so many times. And so I'd like to hear your take on that. So do you feel the same way, or what is your take on what's going to work from now on?
It's authenticity is the absolute key, and it has to come from love. And I think that's one of the reasons why, even though we don't know each other very well, we've always got on well, because I think you feel the same, is that I've got your back and you've got my back, and if I needed any help, I wouldn't be shy about calling. And that's the only way that we can survive as a species. We need to move away from Kirsten and Alan, you and me, it's not about that, it's about us. It's about the we and how we can help each other and lift the planet up. So I don't see that many inauthentic things happening being a success anymore. I think marketing is going to disappear. I think it'll be replaced by the spreader of love or something like that, where people just are sending love out into the world in an authentic way. And one of the best teachers of that has popped into my life in the last couple of months. So I'm really curious as to see where that's going to go. Gabriel Maté, he made a film about trauma, and that's been seen by over 10 million people. Mm. That was totally authentic. Mm. Love, he washes his dirty washing in front of all of us and shows his imperfections as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why that film has been so big. One of the teachers that's had a big influence on the pair of us is Bruce Lipton. Mm. He's not shy about telling all the way he's screwed up in his life, and when he's on stage, you can just sense the unconditional love in him.
I mean, he's so amazing, and it's been very interesting to follow his process, because you can also see in him that it's a journey, and I mean, from 12 to now, it's like a different person, and he was so inspiring. He's like in the 70s, I think.
Yeah, he's mid-70s.
Okay, but he's like, he has the energy of a 5-year-old. Yeah. He's like, can we have a break now? He's like, oh, who needs breaks? And then he wants to go on and on. So that's very interesting.
So I think you've hit the nail on the head in that the word, or one of the words that are in my head most of the time, most of the day, are unconditional love, totally surrender, and authenticity. And that's just, authenticity doesn't need to be in a business sense. It can be as simple as when you're driving your car and you see the person at the zebra crossing, you stop the car. When you walk past the person in the street, you smile at them. And all the way up to being an authentic leader and a servant leader, in like Covey said in his 7 habits, is how can I serve? How can I serve?
Yeah, and I think this is now we're maybe switching subject a little bit, but I work with a lot of leaders, and I've also always been up to taking leadership myself, and I can really see quite clearly that a lot of people simply don't have, they're not in touch with the core. So there's a lot of layers of defense and fear of rejection and blah, blah, blah. That's like protection shields in front of the heart. And so it's very abstract for them, what we're talking about here. And when they come to the courses and they learn about authenticity, it makes sense to them. But then they go back to work, and then they feel they have a role to play, and they can't say the truth, and the office politics and strategies. And then, next thing you know, they're just enrolled in so much mess that the heart is covered again. So it really is a process to work with these things. And I think we can both agree that it's not an overnight thing to develop this. You have to continue, which is why it's a blessing for all of us that you never stop inviting these teachers, and we keep having these opportunities to learn. And also you now have expanded a lot into the online market, so you have a lot of online courses about these things.
I think what we need to do, Kirsten, is we need to go back to the basics, which is to look at the way we educate our children. How important is mathematics? How important is chemistry? How important is physics? How important is geography? Compared to love, gratitude, treating each other with respect, using time and reflection of who we are as a person, what are our values, and what are we here to contribute. And I think if we started to teach our children in a different way, that would really change society as well, because it would change the way we adults think about who we are and what's important to us and what values we have. So I think that's the first thing we should do as society. And in terms of leadership, I think for leaders we need to create a safe space where maybe within their company they can't be possibly as authentic as they want, but there's a safe space with that where they can, and then they look at the small circles of influence that they can do day by day by day, then all of a sudden it's a miracle within the organization.
Yeah, that's thankfully what I see again and again. I mean, it's so interesting because especially the younger people who have less layers because they haven't been here for so long. I mean, it's quite beautiful to see how fast you can actually make that core, that essence pop out, and then it can't be put back. So once it's out, you can't put it back into the hiding. I mean, it's a little bit more, the people who have more conditioning, of course, who've lived like 20 years longer and who have more conditioning, it takes a little bit longer. And once you see people who are out of the sort of you could call it the matrix, then it's like, it does create turbulence in the organization because you can't keep doing the same old things and get away with it.
Or expect a different result.
Yeah, people will spot you and say, that's not authentic, that's not integrity, and they will stop respecting it. So I think it's such an interesting time because we have so many paradigms at the same time. But for me, there's no doubt that the new paradigm is winning, and it's also getting relentless in the sense that it will not stop. It will not, we can't stop. How are we ever going to stop? It's not an option. This is an option for you to stop. No.
For me, it's been obvious for many years that the paradigm shift is going to happen where the youngsters say to the older people, hey guys, you've had your chance. Look at the way the world is. You've messed it up. Come on, out the way. It's for us to take over. And I think that time is coming in the next 5 to 10 years where you'll see a lot of younger people who are authentic with good values and are here to do the best they can for their organization and humanity, starting to be leaders. And I also think that it'll be more women than men because we need the feminine energy to help change the planet, but it needs to be done in a way that they're allowed to maintain their femininity and not take on the masculine characteristics to get to the leadership post. And that's going to be interesting to see how that's going to happen. But I'm sure the younger people are going to have a much bigger role to play in the future.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that about the feminine. You know, you're sitting behind a book called The Future is Feminine. You know, I'm so grateful to hear a man talk about it like that, because this is what my book is about. And I think it's so interesting when you can talk about it in such a manner that we can hear you're not afraid of the feminine, because a lot of people are, even the women, and a lot of women are like, they can't even hear, you know, even in diversity and inclusion conversations, you don't mention the feminine because it's like taboo to mention that this is actually the energy we need. So, you know, sometimes I get I feel a little lonely with that perspective that we absolutely need the feminine in all of us, and there's no way around.
Also the men, because I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to do what I've done is I've not been scared to trying to think of the word in English. When you live in a foreign country for so many years, you end up speaking like a tourist. Udforske, what's udforske called in English?
Udforske, it's like explore. Yeah,
explore my own femininity and not be scared of it. Because for me, the female leaders on the planet are female in appearance, but they're leading like a man.
Yeah, and then
using fear and things like that. And that's not the way to do it. It's authenticity, it's love, it's inclusion, it's helping each other. It's just being human. And I'm sure that we will see a lot more female leaders who are feminine in every sense of the word, not just in appearance.
Yeah, it's a journey, and for many, many years I've been on that journey myself, and also sharing it with a lot of women, that we need to access our feminine power. And actually, when we do, we understand why it was suppressed, because it's very, very unstoppable and wild and free and so full of love. And a lot of people are afraid of love because it's unfamiliar to them, because they're so far away from it. But I think the beautiful thing about the new feminine movement is that it's extremely loving and caring. This is not about excluding the men or about being better than the men. It's about embracing the masculine.
Still need the children.
Yeah, no, but we also need to create the collaborative society. We cannot do. There's no point in doing it without the men. I mean, I have a household full of sons. Yeah. And I have the most beautiful brothers and the beautiful father, and I'm surrounded by extraordinary men. I adore men, but there's an adjustment to make in many men, because many men are still in the immature masculine and they haven't embraced their feminine. So this is a journey of just, you know, getting back to home, because all of us have access to all of it. Yeah. So and for women, it's also needed to make that journey back home. And there are many paths to that, but it's nevertheless.
It may even be more important for the women to find their authentic self and find their femininity than it is for the men.
You know, for many years I worked with mainly women, because I thought, if women don't get into balance, how is the world going to get into balance? And if women don't get access to their feminine, how do they expect the men to? I mean, we can't expect the men to. I mean, actually, many men are more feminine than many women because of they've done that work. So I think women are playing an extremely important role, and that's why I have now, after a few years with mixed courses, I have also now added, you know, women-only courses again, because I think that the feminine grows in environments where they, for a while, just taken away from the masculine gaze. Because as soon as there's a masculine gaze in the room, there's a saying that men see, women are seen. So if you remove the being seen, other than having your soul being seen, have your light being seen and share some, it's very healthy for women. And for men also, to get away from nothing to see but yourself and your own light, right? And each other and your brotherhood. So I think it's good to separate the genders from time to time and then bring them back together. This is my big thing. But back to you and what you're doing. It's so exciting to see how we're going to co-create that new earth that we're all up to. And I would like us to speak a little bit about that, because I know that you are amping up now and really pressing the enlightenment speeder, in the sense of amping up your activity. And also we both sense an increasing need to do so. So I'd like you to expand a little bit of what you see in the coming years. Just if you start with what you're seeing ahead of us, you know, are you keeping the hope for a better world, a new earth? And how will you see it happen, and what will be your own contribution?
Okay, so during Corona, it became apparent to me why I've been fascinated and loved the Star Wars trilogy. Because just when the Emperor and Darth Vader are going to destroy all the white light, all the good just enlightens and everything's okay. So I think that's possibly what's going to happen. I think next year is going to be an interesting year in the world and what's happening in the States. I think we all need to keep ourselves grounded, because it might get very scary with what's going to happen there, because the most powerful country on the planet is going to be totally polarized. But sometimes the forest needs to burn down before the Garden of Eden grows. So I'm really optimistic about what's going to happen in the future. But I think we all have to take good care of ourselves so that we can thrive through the chaos. So that's what I'm focusing on with myself and with my family and my friends. And in terms of leadership and work, I think the two key words or the three key words are authenticity, love, and service.
So you are not keep losing hope when you see all the statistics about where we're heading and this, that, and the other. You're like,
totally not.
yeah, okay, that's a beautiful thing. It's
I just have an inner
encouraging.
knowing that we'll be okay.
Hmm.
Things might get scary, but as long as we keep fighting the dark with love and compassion and togetherness, then people are good. People are pointing the finger at Putin and saying, "Oh, look at all the bad things he's doing." Putin's only doing it because we've let him. If we'd had a different planet, then the consciousness on the planet wouldn't have let Putin do what he's doing, or any of the others. So it just takes a certain amount of us to wake up, and when enough of us wake up, the consciousness on the planet will change very quickly.
Yeah, it's so interesting that when expert scientists are talking about the evolution of the planet, very, very few are talking about the evolution of consciousness, which is a wild card, a joker that can change. We haven't seen yet, or we have seen a lot. We've seen in '68 what that did, and the women's liberation movement, how consciousness actually, how Greta Thunberg, her young climate change, that changes. And I think it's going to be so interesting to see what does the change in our inner climate do to the outer climate when we tidy up inside and stop polluting ourselves with negative thoughts and negative emotions and hate and bitterness and non-forgiveness and grief and bitterness and greed and the lack mentality. What will happen on the outside? Because we know from the quantum physicists that it actually affects. So that will for sure make a difference. And you can say that there's a huge movement which you are part of, and myself too, that really demonstrates the interest in personal development is only rising. Wouldn't you agree about that?
Yeah.
I mean, through any crisis, it's just rising. It hasn't gone down, has it?
And I think the interesting thing is that Greg Braden shared with me one day that it's the square root of 1%. So my maths is not great, but it's like 100 people in a million. So if 100 people in a million start to treat each other with love and compassion and respect, then we know it in terms of, there's been studies done where they've had 1,000 people meditate in a big city. The amount of crime went down just by enough people meditating, because it changed the consciousness.
Yeah, so that's for sure gonna make a difference. And also, I think that there's a big movement to reconnect with our true nature, including the nature around us, and a big waking up to, hello, if we align with something that has been working for 3.8 billion years, maybe we should study that concept instead of our own man-made concept, and align ourselves to the natural cycles and so on. That would also make a difference. Yeah. And when we speak of women, by the way, I just read that only the land in Denmark is owned in 97% of the cases by men.
Wow.
So we have to create the collaborative society, because otherwise, women don't have access to produce their own food.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? But that movement as well towards the regenerative movement is really gaining momentum, and really something I think we can all agree on, because it's really assembling a lot of the mega trends. Like your inner leadership affects the outer leadership. We have to reconnect with our true nature. We have to do biomimicry instead of producing something that's man-made, that's out of touch with nature. So I think that's also very encouraging. Movement.
I think the most encouraging thing is that it's not somebody that needs to get a magic wand and wave it. We have all the solutions on the planet to make the Garden of Eden that we all deserve. There's just not enough willingness to put those things into effect. And at some point in time, I think in the next 5 or 10 years, the willingness will be there, and then things will change quite quickly. But it'll have to be a different mindset by the people, and they'll have to ask different leaders to lead, because the ones that are leading today are burning the forest down.
Yeah,
but the solutions are there. We just have to put them into effect. And I think one of the biggest solutions is that we don't need all this stuff to be happy. When we go back to basic things and basic way of living, and not chasing the big car or the big house or the extra this or the extra that we don't really need, then we'll start treating each other much better, because we'll go away from the competition mentality more into the cooperation mentality. And when we do that, we'll be using less stuff and we'll be treating the planet in a different way.
Yeah, that's one really, really easy thing to do, to start borrowing each other's stuff instead of everybody has to buy their own this, that, and the other, and moving closer and helping each other more. I mean, my God, it's really strange that we still think in these industrial terms where every little family has to take care of themselves, and more single people. I mean, when you become single, you think that's even more crazy, because, you know, why do all these people live by themselves and not help each other? So for sure. Another thing that I think is really going to be interesting to see is, you know, when you shift a level of consciousness, I think you get access to different solutions. And for me, crisis has actually been a catalyst for that, because I really find that Einstein is right when he says you cannot solve problems with the same level of thinking that created them. And I think that humans have a tendency to keep thinking the same way unless we're stopped by a force that's bigger than ourselves. And that's why all these climate problems, you know, with where you see these floodings and fires and all that, it's not so bad in the sense that it makes it very tangible. And when crisis comes to your door, you have to do something different if you want to survive and thrive. And I experienced that, you know, with the crisis in my life, that it was actually, you know, if you have a crisis and you hit the wall, you have two options. You can go down, or you can go up. There's not really other ways. And I have experienced that it's possible to go up, and then you have access to a different level of awareness, and everything looks different from up there. Everything, and the solutions that were unsolved, the things that were unsolvable here, suddenly becomes natural up here. So I find that the crisis we're in is really an evolutionary birthing. It's like a birth canal we're in, around the pressure.
Yeah.
But it's not so bad in that sense. And that's where you come into the picture with all your solutions, because you invite all these teachers who have all these remedies, right? Breathing, you know, new mindset, new ways of thinking about money, new ways of thinking about health, about parent. I mean, you know, so actually the solutions are all available.
We have all solutions. I mean, Corona for me was really difficult to understand what was going on, and frustration at the way things were done. But it was definitely the best learning experience I'd ever had. And just over the last 9 months, we've had something in the family that's been really difficult, and I've never experienced anything like that in my life. But it's definitely been the best learning experience for me, and some of the things that I was working with have exponentially got better. Example is Michael Singer talks about the voice in the head, and quieting the voice in the head, and sitting on the seat of consciousness. That's become much easier because of the struggle that we've gone through as a family. So there's different ways of looking at it, but there's always a bright side to stuff. And I think you do what you can through the day for the things that you believe in, and the things that you can't do anything about it, you're not in control of. You just let it go. And I think as we get older, we get better about doing that.
Yeah, and even not doing anything can also be very effectful. I mean, when the young people refuse to work in the companies where they don't want to support the purpose, that's also a big statement that makes companies think, when we have this great resignation happening, you know, a lot of women, they reach the top and they just refuse to work like men anymore. They exit and create their own companies who become competitors to the old. When we have this quiet quitting movement, there's a lot of ways you can do something without actually costing you much or doing much.
And I think also in terms of my lifetime, there's never been a more exciting time to live on the planet. It's scary in one sense, but it's really exciting what's going to happen, because I genuinely believe that the Garden of Eden will be born, but we're going to go through some shit to get there. I'm curious to see what happens and what things create the change. But I think it'll come down to love, service, cooperation, authenticity, and moving away from Darwin's theories of survival of the fittest and getting back to cooperation, how we can help each other and help our tribe and creating communities. Because we're missing being part of a community, especially after what happened in the last couple of years with COVID. And I think going back to the community way of living and thinking will make a big difference.
Let's just pick up on what you said about COVID. You said it was your biggest learning experience, and just elaborate a little bit on what did you learn there?
What did I learn? It wasn't easy having the children at home and seeing the children suffer. It wasn't easy in terms of having to change the dynamics of how work is, and you're running events. You can't run events with hundreds of thousands of people with when there's COVID and everything's locked down. So I went to nature. That's what I did. I'm lucky in that in 19 I had a new child. A border collie dog was my best friend, and when it got too much, I just went to nature. We just walked and walked and walked and listened to the wind and listened to the water and looked at the greenery and talked to the trees. And it was a perfect opportunity to reflect on who I am, what's important to me, what do I want to do, how I want to be a parent, what things I want to change. So it was a good way to having a cleaning.
Yeah, nature actually has just heard that if you are in nature for 20 minutes, I think your creativity increases by 50% or something like that. It really is. It has a measurable
That's
effect.
why I live on a farm.
I mean, but isn't that incredible? So nature is really our big healer and our big restorer, and that's why we need to take care of them.
But I'm out in nature every day. I never got shoes on, running around in my bare feet, doing the garden in my bare feet. I'm not very good at the garden, but I enjoy just sweeping up leaves or cutting the grass or pruning the bushes or whatever, just being there with my dog, or if I can persuade the kids to come and help me as well.
Yeah, that simple thing about now that you know so much about feet, what is it that it does to have bare feet on the ground and have these finger things on?
Okay, so the 5-finger shoes are good for helping you walk properly and helping you move properly if you're exercising. But if you take them off and you've got your bare feet on the ground, and it has to be grass or sand or stones, then there is natural energy in the earth that comes up from the earth into your feet, and it's like taking antioxidants through your feet but not in your mouth. So we know that the major cause of all disease is inflammation. But what people don't know is that if they have their feet on the grass, that with all these natural antioxidants coming from the ground and killing all the free radicals or neutralizing all the free radicals in the body, within 30 minutes, all inflammation is gone. And why people not know about it? Because it's free. You can't put it in a bottle and you can't make money on it. So one of the big things in the future is going to be people will start running around in their bare feet on the grass. So I sleep in what's called an earthing mat, which is a mat with some silver in it. It's got a wire that goes out into the grass. So it's as if I'm sleeping on the ground all the time, and when I'm sitting at my computer, I've got an earthing mat that I've got my bare feet on. And it's so incredibly powerful. That's why it feels so great to run around in the grass on your bare feet, or when you're on the sand. Most people navigate to the water's edge, and they think it's because the sand is harder there. But it's partly that, but it's also partly because water conducts electricity, so you get a much bigger earthing effect from walking on the wet grass.
Isn't that beautiful? What a good piece of advice we just got there.
Take your shoes off, and your information will.
Yeah, I do it every morning by the lakes. I go out and take my shoes off and stand there. I feel like I'm like, who's my boss?
Yeah,
it's Mother Earth, and it's the light. So I go and connect with my bosses in the morning, but I don't do it for half an hour. But maybe I should start doing that.
I mean, even you can just sit out there. You've got natural stones out there in your bare feet. It'll work. It'll work fine. And one of the things also that helped me during Corona was to start to go out in a winter swim, getting close to nature there.
I mean, this guy is so healthy. I mean, it's like I asked you, are you human? Because you're so freaking strong. It's like you're made of different material. Yeah.
Must be all the Kellogg's cornflakes, Coca-Cola, and white bread I ate as a kid when I was constantly sick.
Yeah, but now you're so different and doing something so differently and inspiring so many other people to do it. And I want to get back to what you said about community, because when I think back of how I got through my biggest crisis was actually a huge lesson I learned there. I mean, I learned so much from my son's life and death. But what I learned in the aftermath of his death was that it's true that what gets people through crisis is community. And I'm really touched when I talk about it, because I was so touched by how many people were so amazing. I mean, putting a little flower at my doorstep, or sending a nice note, or I mean, at the time I didn't even have the energy to respond. I was just like knocked out. But all those little gestures, the neighbor coming down and hugging us, people were just extraordinary. And later I read so many books about death and dying and near-death experiences. And, I was just like so preoccupied by this topic for a long time. And one of the things I read was that it's just scientifically proven that what gets people through a crisis is other people. It's just like you are telling us now, your wisdom and your expertise, and that we're passing on what has worked for you. You're passing that on to us, but also this care and love, and you give me a soup, or if I have a problem, I can call you. That means everything, and that's how we will get through crisis. And I mean, look like at World War II, or look at what happens in communities after a natural disaster. People start helping each other. We're all in the same boat, and that's what gets us through. So we need to stop thinking in terms of the ego separates us and makes us afraid of each other, and like, oh, do you want something from me, or can you take something from me? It's like that mindset needs to shift, and crisis is very good at helping us shift it, because we have to.
But the interesting thing is, the places on the planet, the blue zones, where people live the longest, are all based in community. It's all based on community living. They're all there for each other. They help each other in the gardens. They go and are together with each other doing exercise. So that people that are up in their 90s and their 100s, they're giving each other apples, and they get oranges in return, and it's totally community based. And that's, and I think as we get older, we get more interested in the longevity aspect to things. So one of the things I did in the summer was went and visited one of the Greek islands that's known for the blue zone, and energy, especially in one little fishing village. I'd never experienced energy in a town like it before. Just unconditional love. I could have stayed there for weeks and months, just absorbing the air and feeling what is happening. And it's all community based. Doesn't matter whether it's in Costa Rica or Japan or Greece or Sardinia or whatever. It's all community based.
And so there's like something we've forgotten that we need to get back to, and there's more and more people who actually work on also creating new housing possibilities that are more circular. I mean, instead of these high rises where we're in little boxes, that's still the wrong track, but they might fall down with some earthquakes, I don't know, and then we have to rebuild, and then we will perhaps build more in villages and communities that are in more feminine, you could say, more feminine form, where we are all equal. In the circle, we're all equal. The heart is in the same place.
And just taking it to a simple level is just meeting up once every second week in a community where we all contribute to the community by bringing some food or cleaning up or listening to each other or helping each other or whatever. That's where I'd like to go in the next year. So it's starting to form a community in that way. So I'm trying to take my bravery pills as to how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all with you. We will join you. We will come because we need it, and we've already seen.
You're the honorary feminine energy.
I am so willing to come because I've seen also the kind of community you create, and because of your leadership. And this is maybe the important note to stop or to end up on this little talk. Because of who you are and how you are in a community, you set the tone, like a tuning for the whole community. And I would follow you in your community because of who you are and how you hold that community, because I trust you. Why do I trust you? Because I don't experience the immature ego in you. I experience someone who has sort of cared for that immature, wounded ego in such a way that it's not in the way of what we're here to do, the essence of what we're here to do together and here on the planet in this important time where we can't waste our energy on those immature games. So that's why I would join you. Yeah. So, but this is an important note to self. And for all of us, who do we follow? Who do we join? Who do we trust? And so you can think for yourself, who do you trust and how is the energy when you come at your events? It's always a beautiful energy. It's always only nice people.
We just want to have fun.
Yeah, and nobody pushing around and being annoyed that they don't come. It's like a really good atmosphere. And even the speakers, when I've been at your events, they're like coming down and speaking to people. There's not this hierarchy. It's all like flat structure, and it's also the events you create are also a very beautiful example of just like opening up, just like the master classes you offer with the online courses. There's always a free event, so you can check it out. You don't have to pay before you've checked out if it's something for you. So I really think you really master the new leadership. I am a big fan. I so admire you, and I'm so glad I got to share you with the world, because I really think you're somebody that is worth joining.
And I appreciate that. And I've never done this before, so I feel comfortable with you. So that's the reason. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Before you leave, Alun, you said one thing to me one day that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
And you said that the most important question to ask oneself. So can you please share with the world?
Okay.
One of the most important wisdom pearls that you.
So this is the way I live my life, and this is a quote from Einstein. And Einstein said, "The most important question you'll ever ask yourself is if the universe is a friendly place or not."
Yeah, and your life will unfold according to your answer.
Yeah, and I was late today because of something silly, but I got a parking space right outside.
Beautiful. But you trusted the friendly
universe. Yeah, I trusted the friendly universe.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you for sharing your wisdom. And thank you to those of you who are watching either live or will watch on replay or listen on the podcast. So thank you so much for your attention. And remember the name Alun Biggart, because we're going to hear much more from you, and we are excited to see what you are going to invite us in for. So
Thank you.
thank you so much.